We at the PSOJ, we decided to really, at an EPOC meeting we had December of last year, there was a hell of a dialogue and debate around, with the bankers, Jamaica Bankers Association representatives on EPOC and the small and medium enterprises representatives on EPOC. And the president of this Small and Medium Enterprises Alliance, MSME Alliance, Donovan Wignall, was saying, you will lend my employee money to buy a car, but you won't lend me, my business, any money. What is the problem? And then the president of the Bankers Association at the time, David Noel, was saying, you are not providing me with any data so I can adjudicate your credit. You don't give me the information. I don't understand. I cannot take on that level of risk until I understand the level of your business and what you're providing so that I can adjudicate your credit. So we have a gap. And that gap is showing up in our numbers as Uma spoke to earlier. Now, how do we address it? So we decided, no, let's do something about this. Let's really take this on in a real and meaningful way. Over the years, over the last 6.5 years, and the whole ecosystem has been putting significant effort to try and get small and medium enterprises going. The way to access finance for small and medium enterprises is really through working capital financing, movable asset-based lending, inventory, equipment, receivables. Because you cannot bank a SME the same way you bank a large corporate. It's a different way of adjudicating credit. India has gone to alternative platforms, but where does Jamaica go in that regard? Over the last 20 years or so, the government of Jamaica has crowded out the private sector. And therefore, there wasn't really a focus by the financial sector around small and medium enterprises. You lend to your government and you lend to your corporates. It's much easier to adjudicate. Life is much easier. You still can make a lot of money. Now, with the government pulling out to the market and debt to GDP ratios coming below 100% at 94 currently around now, there's space opening up. There's liquidity in the bank, and there's this huge sector that requires funding. But this sector lacks sophistication because they have just not been able to exercise that muscle around building and growing their business and building the competencies and the skill sets to really run a business. So they're to be able to, they keep it at almost a micro level, and they're not able to move from micro to small to medium to large. You're not seeing that movement, and it's because really they weren't prepared. Despite the efforts, but the market environment was just really not conducive to it. So therefore, where we are right now with low interest rates, with a focus around the SMEs as we have seen in the last a couple of years, and this started actually in 2010 with the Credit Reporting Act, credit bureaus. Then we moved to 2013 when the SIPA was put in place, so that Secured Interest in Personal Property Act. Then we moved to the Electronic Collateral Register being put in place in the following year, and credit bureaus. So therefore this has all been put in place. However, we have still not seen the take-up, because when you look at home the credit to small and medium enterprises, which are run around 60 to 70% of GDP and 60 to 80% of employment, is only 10.7% of bank credit that goes to small and medium enterprises, right? So that's where the gap is, and that's where the opportunity is for bankers to bank the sector and to make money. But it is a very rigorous process to bank and to adjudicate credit if you don't have information to adjudicate the credit, because then it becomes very risky and very expensive to bank administratively. So how do we go and how do we shift that, right? So when the PSOJ took this on, we said there were these 10 key factors that we need to work through: the overall regulatory environment, the products that are suited for SMEs, credit adjudication process that are suited for SMEs, a more open capital provider mindset by the financial institutions, less risk aversion to the SME category, full awareness of products and programs available, because there are ton load, DBJ, JBDC, there are so many institutions that are gearing their efforts towards the SMEs, but we're not seeing the take-up that we should be seeing. right? Simpler application process with forms and requirements. You know what I mean? The gap between when you, as Richard, as the governor alluded to earlier, the forms that are required by small and medium enterprises, when them get that 50-page form to fill out, what they may do? They may say, no, I can't bother with that, right? Faster turnaround time from application to disbursement, SME skills readiness, which is important, and support improved quantity, quality, and relevance of training that's available. So your training needs to be fit for purpose. Increase informality, registered SMEs with transparent business practices, clarity, consistency of company data, and lower SME delinquency rates. If you put this all together, you should get lower SME delinquency rates in the banks, right? Now, so we decided, I mean, everybody's working so hard at this. How can we support this effort and help pull it together? So we pulled together the 14 stakeholders through this PSOJ effort: Jamaica Business Development Corporation, Jamaica Bankers Association, the MSME Alliance Association for Microfinancing, Jamaica Microfinancing Association, Blossom is here, Financial Inclusion Secretariat of the BOJ, Cooperative Credit Union League, Development Bank of Jamaica, the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries, Small Business Association of Jamaica, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, JMEA, Exim Bank, and Economic Growth Council. We all came together and said, we want to shift this ecosystem, right? We signed a declaration that we're going to shift this at our July 3rd launch of this project. Now, this project is not just workshops that we come and make some big speech. It is actually ongoing work that we will be doing through the entire life of this project, right? So this is the declaration. I won't read it because even though I got some more time from Monique and Jerome, but I won't read through, right? But we can go to the next slide, right? But this is what we signed. At the workshop, we had 90 SMEs in attendance, 28 bankers in attendance, 26 business development organizations, technical service providers, DBJs, the JBDCs, the accountants, the lawyers, all in attendance, and specially invited guests from the government, etc., and the media. It started very tense because the SMEs really got off on the bankers, and they really were able to download. And we give them the room. We gave them the room, you know what I mean? And I'm sorry for, we had some bankers on the panel, and trust me, them get it, you know what I mean? But we listened. We were very open, and we listened. Then we broke out into afternoon sessions into 14 groups, 14 tables with 8 to 12 team members from each table, working through those 10 factors that I pointed out earlier. And over 60 different suggestions were made about how to improve the ecosystem, right? So we did a little survey after the workshop to determine what was the effort, how did it go? Do you understand the SME ecosystem more fully? So because we went through a whole awareness process around what exists, absolutely, somewhat. No response was 1.3%. Moving on. Do you believe that this effort will produce positive results? We're all at the table. There's no reason why it should not produce positive results, right? So therefore, absolutely, somewhat 30.4%, not at all 1.3%, unsure 5.1%. So we really had everybody pumped up, right? So we had to filter those suggestions and consolidate them into a manageable number of work streams. Our program mandate is that every product, solution, platform, process, form, list of requirements, training session must be fit for purpose, which means designed to accommodate the cultural and educational realities of where we live and who is being targeted. The only question that determines the success of any of the idea is it embedded, because you can do all this effort and you can roll out legislation, you can roll out platforms, but is it being embedded and used? Right now we have our company registry, our collateral registry, electronic collateral registry in place at the company's office, where we should be able to put the movable assets into this collateral registry so that they can become bankable and they can serve as collateral. Is filled with motor vehicles for retail loans. So it's not being utilized for small and medium enterprises to a very small extent. So therefore, we have to address the challenges. Lots of jaded players and skepticism is high, blame game, low trust. keeping the process energized in the face of obstacles and system slowdown, keeping processes funded long enough to execute and embed the wins, ensure recommendations are fully landed and embedded. Now, we did this first workshop on July 3rd, and while we have been communicating through social media, otherwise, we have not been updating around the progress. Now, immediately people we move to a place of skepticism. That's another waste of time thing. No, but so what are the quick wins? What are the key success factors? Quick wins. We have to be able to win. We have to keep the conversation in the public, clarity of focus, unrelenting determination, undeterred by resistance, clear metrics of progress, agile decision process, and executing team. Right? So therefore, these are the work streams that we have in place. We lack data. So we said, let's engage ICAJ credit bureaus and work with the DBJ around their credit enhancement fund, their credit enhancement products funds. In engaging the ICAJ, what we intend to do is to put together a panel of accountants, and we have started this process of right across Jamaica, accounting firms, define the services that are required for small and medium enterprises and price them accordingly, so that when that small and medium enterprise walks into a bank or a financial institution, credit union or microfinance, and they don't have their financial records, even a financial statement or anything, they can be directed to these accounting firms who will know how to treat with them and not treat them like they're a large corporate, right? Simplify and standardize forms, and also with the credit bureaus, we have been meeting with them, and what we have agreed with both the credit bureaus and the ICAJ is that we will be working together to ensure that with the bankers and the financial institutions to ensure that the data can be provided, one, through the accounting firms back to the banks, and from the credit bureaus, that the banks provide the credit bureaus with the data so that the credit bureaus can provide scoring and information to the banks to make the credit process adjudication much more easier, less inefficient, much more efficient, so we can bank the SME sector profitably. We need to simplify and standardize forms and requirements. The forms are very onerous, they take long, et cetera, it's just difficult to read and digest. Embed tiered KYC. This is extremely important because this has been a deliverable under the Financial Inclusion Plan. It's supposed to be rolled out this year. That's what's in the timeline inside here. And tiered KYC is so that we can have less onerous requirements for small and medium enterprises. Risk-based, because you're taking a small exposure, so you create deposit products so that small and medium enterprises can open their accounts and do business. If they can do business, then you can track your cash flow, and then you are able to bank them. So all of this is to move from the informal into the formal, and also to be able to get the data so you can actually bank them. Right? So update the credit adjudication process, because small and medium enterprises are much smaller loans, and therefore you have to make it scalable. So therefore, if you book a corporate loan and a $50 million or $100 or $200 million loan, $1 billion loan, you can take a smaller spread, yet what you earn. But if you have to bank a $2 million and a $3 million, you have to make the process efficient, so you have to make it scalable, right? Greater usage of the electronic registry when MICAF is working through the adjustments. Rethinking training for SMEs and financial institutions, because even within the financial institutions, our people need to know how to engage in that conversation with small and medium enterprises, and small and medium enterprises need to lift their game also. Ongoing communication with the public, SMEs, and stakeholders. Create a program of benefits of SME formalization and ensure easier process. And creating an advocacy body, financial ombudsman, to help consumers with FIs, tax authority, DBJ interface, and customs. Design process to embed BOJ guidance notes faster into the ecosystem. When we get a 250-page guideline and everybody reads it in a different way, we want to utilize the committee of the Jamaica Bankers Association, their regulatory committee, to kind of standardize. This is what the guidelines are that BOJ is trying to get out to us. Let's standardize, let's make it simple. So when all the banks get it, they are very clear what is required. Build a website. So we're building a website right now called smallbusinessportal.com that will be able to, that will show the entire ecosystem and what's available and put it in very simple language. What are requirements? Who are the training providers? Who are those panel of accountants that can provide you with services and all the business tools? DBJ had a similar, and DBJ has a really good website up also, which shows the whole life cycle and where to be directed. But we want to complement that as much as possible, and create and track project metrics to ensure SME access to finance and training. Right. So we have 5 workshops. We did our launch workshop, which was on July 3rd. Our second one, workshop 2A, is with the banks, and that's November 22nd. So we'll be thinking around the products, improving the credit adjudication and risk assessment frameworks, and supporting infrastructure, credit bureaus, ICAJ, DBJ. So these are work streams. The work streams actually kick off next week. Right, we have all the bankers who have signed up and members from the ecosystem, BOJ and compliance people, etc. They're all on board, signed up, and ready to roll. So therefore, we kick off those work streams, and the active work will be done to develop these programs over the next 8 weeks or so. Workshop 2B is working with the credit unions and microfinance for their particular segment, which tends to be a little bit more micro than who the banks target. The third workshop is with the fourth workshop. Really, the third workshop is working with the Development Bank of Jamaica, the business development organizations, the JBDCs of this world, and the multilaterals. And I'm being told to wrap up. I have one more. And the multilaterals, to ensure that what is required from these business development organizations that get grant funding from these multilaterals, that is a simple process so that we can really get the take-up going. Workshop 3 is then, after we pull it all together, bankers, credit unions, microfinance, business development organizations, then we go back to the SMEs. We have a forum and we say, these are the solutions that we have come up with. We want you to be able to give us that feedback, even though we'll have focus groups throughout. But that is workshop 4, and workshop 5 is pulling it all together. I think I'm on the final slide about now. Right? So what are the overall project metrics? How do we know by next year that we have impacted? Increase SME access to finance. The website is launched, smallbusinessportal.com, built but also used. Most FIs have dedicated SME sections on their website, financial institutions. Tiered KYC is in place. Movable asset registry is now being used for SME lending. ICAJ active involvement and up and running. That program that we're working with ICAJ, it's up and running. And 20 plus modular language appropriate training classes offered for SME bankers, several joint classes, reverse factoring platform built and being used, BOJ guidance notes embedded in less than 3 months, and online SME surveys of time from application to answer is less than 21 days, time from, not 1 day as in India, time from approval to disbursement is less than 30 days, forms of process not considered onerous or scary, and the feeling about the SME overall ecosystem is much better. So this is what we have set ourselves and our task for the next year, and we're going to, and it's a continuous effort. Chauvel is here also, just recognizing Chauvel, who is Sagicor Bank, who is really making a big move in the SME space and doing quite a great job. You know what I mean? So kind of acknowledge Chauvel. So this is what we're trying to achieve over the next year. On that note, thank you very much, ladies.